Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel for another episode of the Routes Learning series recorded within Train Simulator. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the full Chatham Main Line route by Dovetail Games, and I'm going to be driving a full-length journey along the route between Ramsgate in Kent and London Victoria. For this video I'm using a custom created scenario following the real-life timetable of train 1 Papa 56, which is the 1720 Southeastern service from Ramsgate through to Victoria. The section of the route between Ramsgate and Faversham is completely new to this channel and hasn't appeared before, but between Faversham and Victoria, sections of that route have appeared in several different videos in the past, both in Train Simulator and in Train Sim World, but I really wanted to cover this full-length journey. And of course there is also the Dover branch, which was also included when Dovetail Games extended this route, so I do intend to cover a journey through to Dover on a video in the future. So for this journey, we're going to be calling at all stations to Rochester before becoming a fast service from there. So stops along the way will include Dumpton Park, Broadstairs, Margate, Westgate-on-Sea, Birchington-on-Sea, Herne Bay, Chestfield and Swalecliffe, Whitstable, Faversham, Teynham, Sittingbourne, Newington, Raynham, Gillingham, Chatham, Rochester, then fast through to Bromley South, and again then fast through to the final stop at London Victoria. The total distance for this journey is just over 79 miles. The train that I'm driving for this journey is the Class 375 Electrostar electric multiple unit. The Class 375s have been in service since the year 2000 and were manufactured by Adtrans and Bombardier Transportation at Derby's Litchurch Lane Works between 1999 and 2005, with a total of 140 of these units constructed. 28 of these were later converted to the Class 377/3 subclass, with 112 remaining in service today. The Class 375 is formed of 3 or 4 coaches per unit, with the 3 coach units being designated as the Class 375/3 subclass. Each 4 coach unit weighs just under 174 tonnes and has a length of around 80 metres, which is around 265 feet. They have a power output of 2,000 horsepower or 1,500 kilowatts, and the train that I'm driving today is formed of 2 4-coach units connected together, with a total power output of 4,000 horsepower. Most Class 375 subclasses run only on the 750 volts DC third rail electrification system, which is found throughout the southern region, with the Class 375/6 subclass being dual voltage, also able to run on the 25 kilovolts 50 Hz AC overhead electrification system. These units have a maximum speed of 100 miles per hour, though the maximum speed limit for this journey today will be 90 miles per hour. I've now jumped into the cab of the Class 375 to quickly set up the train here ready for departure. So the startup procedure is very similar to most other British trains, especially with the Armstrong Powerhouse Enhancement Pack. So the first thing I'm going to do is to activate the master key by pressing Shift and W, and then I'm going to move the reversing handle into the neutral position and reset the AWS self-test sequence. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to press Ctrl and D to activate the driver safety device, and Ctrl and R to change the door mode to guard operated, as with Southeastern trains, well, they're long distance trains anyway, the guard still operates the doors rather than the driver. So now that I've done that, let's just quickly have a look around the cab here. So we've got the driver reminder appliance, the signal is clear, so I'm just going to deactivate that now by clicking on it. So just to talk about the controls, so here we've got the power and brake controller, so it's a combined traction and brake controller. We have a standard Westcode 3-step brake, so you've got the off position, and then steps 1, 2 and 3, which is full service, and then a final step, which is the emergency step beyond that. And I tend to try and not go above step 3 of braking, and then if you move forward away from the off position, we have 4 notches of power. Now continuing around the cab, you can see there the speedometer measured in miles per hour, with the red line marking the maximum speed for this unit of 100 miles per hour. There is a speed set on this train, but from a conversation I had with a Southeastern train driver some time ago, I understand that the speed set is not in use, so you are supposed to control the speed manually by adjusting the power handle. rather than letting the speed set do the work for you. Just below the speedometer you've got the tabs, so you can currently see a number 4 there, so if I move the middle tab to the left, I've now changed that to 8, and that's just to remind you the length of the train that you're driving. So I've just changed it to 8 to represent the fact that we're driving an 8-coach train. Now, continuing around the cab, we've got the brake gauge, which is pretty standard. So the right-hand needle is the brake cylinder pressure gauge, then the higher that needle is pointing, the harder the brakes are applied, and when that needle is pointing to 0, then the brakes are fully released. Though it's not completely reliable to show you how hard you're braking when you're slowing down from quite a high speed, because this train uses a blend of air braking and dynamic braking to bring the speed down, so the needle won't necessarily climb high when the dynamic braking is in full effect, but as you get to slower speeds it becomes much more accurate at telling you how hard the brakes are applied. Continuing around the cab here now, we've got the horn control here, which is a 2-toned horn controllable with the spacebar and the B key. And now we're going to set up the GSMR radio system here. So what I need to do now is click on the top button, well, the top right button there, and now enter the train's head code, which is 1 Papa 56. So 1 Papa 56. And now we've got a 4-digit signal code for the signal ahead of us. So I was told in my previous video when I asked that you're supposed to use the last 3 digits of the signal to enter it, because it will only accept 3 digits in the GSMR system. So the last 3 digits are going to be 178, and now I click that and it's going to register us on the radio system. I'll also mention at this point that the headlights are automatically turned on to the daytime setting once we've set up the train in this driver's cab, so I don't need to worry about the headlights. And finally, you need to change the destination display on the outside of the train by using the F7 and F8 keys. To get to Victoria using the scroll takes quite a long time, so I'm not going to show you me doing that on the outside of the train, but when you next see an outside view of the train, then the destination display will be set correctly. So now that I've set up the Class 375 ready for departure, let's just take another look at the train and depart and head out on our journey towards London Victoria. As we depart away from Ramsgate, the speed limit here is 15 miles per hour with just under a mile to go to the first stop, which is Dumpton Park. The speed limit's now going up to 50 miles per hour as we start on this bridge, though on the HUD it doesn't show you as the 50 limit starts till after this bridge, and in fact it will only clear you up to 25, but I'm just going to do it as the speed post shows. So in a moment, just as we reach the end of the bridge, I'm going to accelerate up towards 50 miles per hour, though we've only got around a quarter of a mile to go to an upcoming 30 limit, so I'm not going to accelerate too much. And now just going to perform a quick brake test. So we just reached 25. I've now made a step 2 brake application just to bring our speed down. And now we can start accelerating once again. I know that's something I often forget to do in my videos, but certainly from my experience travelling on Electrostars, drivers definitely do this when they're starting out on the journey. So the 30 mile per hour speed post is coming up just past this upcoming signal. I'm just accelerating up to 35. Now let's shut off the power and just make a step 1 brake application to ensure that we're down to 30 in time. And now I'm just going to allow the train to coast into Dumpton Park Station, which is coming up very shortly. I'll make a step 1 brake application as we enter the platform, and at Dumpton Park Station we want to stop at the S sign right at the end. You can now see the S sign just coming up on the right hand side, that blue sign there. And so if we stop just as the platform disappears, we should then be stopping in just about the right place. As we depart away from Dumpton Park, the speed limit here is still 30 miles per hour, with around 1¼ miles to go to the next stop, which is Broadstairs. Now that we've reached 30 miles per hour, I've just shut off the power once again to allow the train to coast until we can accelerate further. The speed limit will shortly be going up to 80 miles per hour just after this curve here. We're now passing the 80 mile per hour speed post, and we can accelerate towards that just after we've crossed the next AWS ramp. So we're just coming up on the ramp now. Now I'm just going to leave it a couple more seconds, and we should now be clear to accelerate up towards 80. At this point we've got around 3/4 mile to go. I'm going to idle the power as we reach the next AWS ramp, and then there's going to be a left curve just here. So we've just reached the AWS ramp now, and I'm going to apply the brakes just after the bridge that we're about to cross on this curve. So here's the bridge now. Just wait a couple more seconds, and now I'm going to apply the brakes. So there is an upgrade of 1 in 85 here approaching Broadstairs station, which does aid with the braking. And here at Broadstairs we want to stop at the 7 to 12 car stop sign at the end of the platform. We are still on an upgrade, now up 1 in 120, which is aiding with our braking. So I've just released the brakes momentarily as I thought we were going to slow down a little bit too early. But due to the upgrade, you do need to remember to use the hill start button when departing away from Broadstairs, which on the class 375 with the Armstrong Powerhouse Enhancement Pack is the numpad plus key. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Broadstairs, the speed limit was still 80 miles per hour, and as mentioned just before the stop, we were on an upgrade of 1 in 120. So although you didn't see it because I showed you an outside view of the train, I did use numpad plus and held that down until I'd applied a notch of power, and then let go of the plus key, and that just allows you to draw power before the brakes are fully released to prevent a rollback. And also as we departed away from Broadstairs, we had around 3¼ miles to go to the next stop, which is Margate. gradient has changed along here to a down 1 in 110 grade, which has significantly helped our acceleration. And in a moment the speed limit's going to be increasing to 90 miles per hour with around 2 miles to go, and around 1.5 miles to go to an upcoming 30 mile per hour speed limit. At this signal, we've got just over a mile to go to the upcoming 30 limit, and we're going to be passing a warning in a moment. As we pass the warning, I'm going to coast and just allow, idle the power and allow the train to coast, and I'm going to apply the brakes at the next signal. I've now made a step 2 brake application to bring our speed down, and braking at that signal should bring you down just about perfectly in time for that 30 speed limit, which comes into force just before Margate Station. We're now down to 30 miles per hour just in time, as we're just passing the 30 mile per hour speed post here. I'm just going to allow the train to coast towards Margate Station now. And here at Margate we want to stop at the 6 and 8 car stop sign, which is on the right hand side and very difficult to see. So it's just beyond the platform roof. There's going to be a shelter, and it's just beyond that shelter where you'll see the 6 and 8 car stop sign. So we're just passing the roof now. We're now just coming up on the shelter, and the 6 and 8 car stop sign, you basically can't see it, so a bit of guesswork as to exactly where to stop. But I'm thinking that we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Margate, the speed limit was still 30 miles per hour, though we've just passed a 75 mile per hour speed post, and we can accelerate up towards that at this overbridge just here, with around 1.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Westgate-on-Sea. Along here now we're going to be on a 1 in 132 upward gradient, which is going to significantly affect our acceleration. The grade will level out just before the next signal, and we're going to coast at the AWS ramp for that signal, and then apply the brakes for our stop just past the signal. I've now idled the power to allow the train to coast. We're just coming up on the signal now. Just going to wait a second or two, and now let's apply the brakes. Here at Westgate-on-Sea we want to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. I've I've just reduced the braking for a moment, as I think we might have braked just slightly too early there. Just going to release them completely now until we're entering the platform. And now I've made a step 1 brake application as we entered the platform here. I see we've got people walking across the tracks, quite literally floating. What are you doing? Oh, the people in this game do make me laugh sometimes. And we should now be stopped in just about the right place. As we departed away from Westgate-on-Sea, the speed limit was still 75 miles per hour, with around 1 3/4 miles to go to the next stop, which is Birchington-on-Sea. At this upcoming signal, we've got around a mile to go, and the gradient's going to change to an up 1 in 101 grade just after the signal. I'm going to idle at the end of the next right-hand curve, and then I'm going to apply the brakes at the following overbridge. Power's now in idle, so we're just coasting along, and you can see that overbridge coming up just ahead. Here at Birchington-on-Sea, we want to stop at the 8-car stop sign, which is around 2/3 of the way along the platform. We've just passed the 4-car stop marker on the left there. I think next is going to be the 6-car stop marker. And then finally, 2 posts further up is the 8-car stop marker. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Birchington-on-Sea, the speed limit was 75 miles per hour, though it's soon increasing to 90 miles per hour, with around 8 miles to go to the next stop, which is Herne Bay. The speed limit's now increased to 90 miles per hour, and we should easily be able to get up to that along this quite long gap between stops. In fact, this is one of the longest gaps between stops on this journey. The other two really long ones would be, I guess, between Rochester and Bromley South, and also between Bromley South and London Victoria. At this upcoming signal, we've got around 6 3/4 miles to go. At the upcoming signal, we've got just under 5 3/4 miles to go, and as we reach 90 miles per hour, I'm going to need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to maintain the speed. Trying to see all the whistle posts along here. As anyone who's a regular to this channel knows, I do often miss them. The thing is that when you're looking down at your notes and stuff like that, it's very easy to miss a whistle post. So yeah, I'm trying to catch them all if I can. At this signal just here, we've got around, well, just under 4 3/4 miles to go. At the next signal, which is just before a left-hand curve, we've got just under 3 3/4 miles to go, and just under a mile to go to an upcoming 85 mile per hour speed limit. As we reach the end of this left-hand curve, I'm going to allow the train to coast so that we can coast down to the upcoming 85 limit. The gradient's going to be changing to up 1 in 100, which will aid with the deceleration process. However, I should point out that on the 1 in 100 upgrade, even in full power, we won't be able to maintain 85 miles per hour. The train will still continue to lose speed. So now we're down to 85. I've gone up to full power to try and hold us as close to 85 as I can. At the 85 speed limit, we had around 2 3/4 miles to go. At the upcoming signal, we've got just over 1 3/4 miles to go, and around 3/4 of a mile to go to an upcoming 75 mile per hour speed limit. So So I'm just going to allow the train to coast now that we've passed the signal. We'll continue to lose speed for a moment, and then the gradient's about to level out. And I'm just going to apply the brakes very lightly for that upcoming 75 limit as we reach this upcoming overbridge with the girders on top of it. We are on a slight downgrade now, well I say slight, quite significant downgrade now of 1 in 102, so I'll just slow this down to slightly below 75 to ensure that we don't end up breaking the speed limit. The speed limit's now going back up to 85 miles per hour with just over 3/4 of a mile to go, so we're not going to accelerate. And now just as we've crossed the AWS ramp there, I'm now applying the brakes for our stop. Here at Herne Bay we want to stop at the 7 to 12 car stop sign at the end of the platform. And the gradient is levelling out now from that downgrade just before we enter the platform here. I'm just going to cut the braking now to step 1. I think we're probably slowing down a little bit too quickly. And now I'm just going to coast towards the end of the platform here. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we depart away from Herne Bay, the speed limit here is 85 miles per hour, with just over 2 miles to go to the next stop, which is Chestfield and Swalecliffe. Along this section of track there's going to be a lot of gradient changes up and down, but we're not really going to need to respond to them as we're not going to get anywhere near the speed limit until we have to slow down for the next stop. The signal just coming up is just over 1.5 miles from our stop. As we approach the next signal, I'm going to idle the power at the AWS ramp, and then I'm going to apply the brakes at the signal itself. Now made a step 2 brake application to start bringing our speed down. Here at Chestfield and Swalecliffe we need to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. I should point out here that there is an upgrade. I didn't actually note the steepness for some reason, but there is an upgrade here at Chestfield and Swalecliffe just before we enter the platform. So we are departing on an upgrade, and once again you will need to use the hill start button to ensure that the train doesn't roll back. And we should now be stopped in just about the right place. As we departed away from Chestfield and Swalecliffe, the speed limit was still 85 miles per hour, with around 1.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Whitstable. We're now passing a warning for an upcoming 50 mile per hour speed limit, which comes into force just before the next stop, and it's around a mile from the limit itself. And at this signal, we've got just over a mile to go. I'm now looking out for a level crossing along here. I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast once we reach the level crossing. And then I'm going to apply the brakes just before the start of a right-hand curve. We're just coming up on that right-hand curve now. I'm going to apply the brakes now at this point. Here at Whitstable Station, we want to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Whitstable, the speed limit was 50 miles per hour, and, well, should I say, still is 50 miles per hour, though it's soon increasing to 65 miles per hour, with just over 7 miles to go to the next stop, which is Faversham. We're now on a 1 in 101 upward gradient, which is significantly affecting our acceleration. I've just dropped the power though slightly to ensure we didn't break 50 miles per hour. The speed limit has now gone up to 65 miles per hour, and we can accelerate towards that just past the foot crossing that we just crossed there. And the gradient's now going to level out once again. Now that we're reaching 65 miles per hour, I'm going to cut the power back in a moment to ensure we don't break the speed limit. So I've just dropped us back to notch 1, and that should hold us at just below 65. The speed limit's now increasing to 90 miles per hour with just over 1¼ miles to go to an upcoming 85 mile per hour speed limit. And also just over 5½ miles to go to Faversham. Speed limit's now 85 miles per hour with just over 4¼ miles to go. Now that we're doing 85, we need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to maintain the speed. Speed limit's now increasing back up to 90 miles per hour with around a mile to go to an upcoming 75 mile per hour speed limit. So I've gone into full power for now, but I'm going to idle the power at the next signal. And I'm going to apply the brakes step 1, entering the next right hand curve. We're down to 75. I'm just going to allow the train to coast. We're just about to pass the 75 speed post with just under a mile to go to an upcoming 60 mile per hour speed limit. And we've just had a warning for the upcoming 60 limit. Now going to apply the brakes at this signal, so I've made an initial step 1 brake application. I will increase it to step 2 if I need to do so. We're now down to 60 in time. I'm just going to allow the train to coast along here for now. There is a 50 mile per hour speed limit coming into force just before the next signal. just brake to slow us down to 50 in time. At this signal we've got around a quarter of a mile to go to an upcoming 30 mph speed limit. So I'm just going to make another step 1 brake application. The 30 limit comes into force just after some crossover points on this right hand curve. I will increase the braking if necessary just to ensure that we're down to 30 in time. So just did a quick burst of step 2 braking, back to step 1, and now we're down to 30 and we can just coast into Faversham Station. The speed limit increases to 60 mph here immediately before the platform, and we need to stop at the 4 to 6 and 8 car stop sign, which is around 2/3 of the way along. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we depart away from Faversham, the speed limit here is 60 mph, though soon going up to 75 mph, with around 4 miles to go to the next stop, which is Teynham. The speed limit's now increasing to 75 mph. At this upcoming signal on this rather long right-hand curve, we've got around 3 miles to go, and we're also on an upgrade at this point, which is significantly affecting our acceleration. The gradient's now changing to a downgrade of 1 in 120, so I will cut off the power at just below 75 to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. The speed limit's now increasing to 85 miles per hour with around 1 3/4 miles to go. At this signal just here, we've got just over a mile to go, and now I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast. The speed limit's now about to increase further to 90 miles per hour, and I'm going to apply the brakes just after, well, between the AWS ramp that we just crossed and this signal just here. So I've made a step 2 brake application, which should bring our speed down quite nicely. Here at Teynham Station, we need to stop at the 8-car stop sign around 2/3 of the way along the platform. I think we might be slowing down a little bit too quickly, so I've just cut the braking for a moment. So we've just passed the 4-car stop sign. I'm now looking out for the 6-car stop sign, and then the 8 should be coming up a few posts after that. We did slow down a bit too quickly there. We're just passing the 6 now, and the 8 is coming up in a couple of posts' time. You can just see it there on the left-hand side. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing away from Teynham, the speed limit here is 90 miles per hour, with just over 3 miles to go to the next stop, which is Sittingbourne. At the upcoming signal at the end of this left-hand curve, we've got around 2 1/4 miles to go. As we approach 80 miles per hour, I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast. We're going to pass the overbridge coming up just ahead, and I'm going to apply the brakes for Sittingbourne Station at the next AWS ramp. . Here at Sittingbourne we want to stop at the 8 to 10 car stop sign, which is near the end of the platform. And so we should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Sittingbourne, the speed limit was 90 miles per hour with around 3¼ miles to go to the next stop, which is Newington. Now crossing the junction with the line towards Sheerness, so the Sheerness branch diverging to the right there, and that's actually a route that I'm looking to cover in an upcoming video. It was covered in the very early days of this channel, but I feel like that video needs a remake, as there's quite a few older videos that I'd love to remake into the current standards that I have for making these videos. And now we're crossing the junction with the line from the Sheerness branch joining us just here. So we've just passed a flashing double yellow signal with around 2½ miles to go. And then we're shortly going to be passing a 70 mile per hour speed warning, which is around ½ mile from the limit itself. So the reason for the flashing yellows is that at Newington Station the tracks go to 4 tracks for a couple of miles until just before Rainham. And to stop at Newington you have to go onto one of the side tracks. So that's why we've got flashing yellows. Now, as far as I'm aware, on the London to Faversham route, they included a speed limit for this junction, but it seems to be missing on this extended route. So I'm not sure why that is, but I mean, if it was just line speed 70 miles per hour, you definitely wouldn't get flashing yellow signals, because you would just be proceeding at normal line speeds over the junction. So yeah, I'm going to slow down to about 30 to 40 miles per hour, as I don't remember what that speed limit is. So at the signal with the feather indicator, I've now got the brakes on to slow us down. Of course, it is a single yellow aspect, so I do also have to bear that in mind, that there could be a red coming up, although I know there isn't. In real life, you wouldn't know that there isn't, so, and of course, as I'm trying to drive this as realistically as possible, I'm going to treat it as if the next signal is red until proven otherwise. So I think it might have been 40 at this junction. I'm not completely certain, but we are coming into the platform a little bit on the hot side, so I'm just going to increase the braking maybe a bit harder than I would normally. Here at Newington Station we need to stop at the 8 car stop sign around 2/3 of the way along the platform. And we're definitely slowing down too early as we've just passed the 4 and that's the 6 coming up. So I'm just going to allow the train to coast along for now until we get closer to the 8-car stop marker. And so we should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing away from Newington, the speed limit is now 75 miles per hour, with just over 2.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Raynham. At the upcoming signal, we've got around a mile to go to an upcoming 60 mile per hour speed limit. So I've now decided to idle the power at 70 miles per hour. We're about to pass that 60 warning, and then we're coming up on an overbridge in a moment. So at the overbridge, I'm going to make a step 1 brake application. I will increase the braking if necessary, but I think step 1 should slow us down for that 60 limit in time. Now down to 60, so I'm just going to allow the train to coast for now. We're crossing a junction as we're going back to a double track section, and then the speed limit's going up to 75 miles per hour immediately after the junction. We've got just over half a mile to go at this point, and I'm going to apply the brakes just before this upcoming signal. Here at Raynham Station, we once again want to stop at the 8-car stop sign around 2/3 of the way along the platform. Once again, slowing down a little bit too early, as that's the 6-car stop sign there. 3 posts ahead is the 8-car stop sign. And we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing away from Raynham, the speed limit is still 90 miles per hour with around 3 miles to go to the next stop, which is Gillingham. Now passing a warning for an upcoming 60 mile per hour speed limit, around a mile from the limit itself, and with 1 3/4 miles to go. I've now shut off the power at 70 just to allow the train to coast. And I'm going to apply the brakes approaching the next signal to make sure that we're down to 60 in time. We're now down to 60 miles per hour with just under a mile to go. I'm just going to allow the train to coast at this point. We're now passing Gillingham EMU depot on the left-hand side there. And I'm going to apply the brakes for Gillingham Station shortly after entering the next left-hand curve. Here at Gillingham Station, we want to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform, which is right near the footbridge. And so just pull up slightly further. We should now be stopping in just about the right place. As we departed away from Gillingham, the speed limit was still, or should I say is still, 60 miles per hour with just over 1.5 miles to go to the next stop at Chatham and around 3/4 of a mile to go to an upcoming 50 mile per hour speed limit. I don't know why I keep mixing up my tenses there as such. I say the speed limit was, but the speed limit still is. And I've noticed I've done that a few times on this journey. I'm going to shut off the power at just above 50 miles per hour. And the speed limit drops to 50 at the signal, just at the end of the tunnel here. I've just made a light brake application now just to ensure that we are down to 50 in time. We've now got a warning for an upcoming 30 mph speed limit. The limit is 30 mph at the next signal, and I'm going to apply the brakes as we reach the second underbridge on this right-hand curve. So we've just crossed the first one, and now we've reached the second bridge. And now I've got the brakes on to slow us down in time for the upcoming 30 limit. The speed limit's now going to be 30 mph for, a few miles actually, from this point until I think it's something like a mile beyond Rochester. We are on a slight downward grade, so I'm just going to use some brakes just to ensure we don't break the 30 mph speed limit, though that gradient does level out in this tunnel just before Chatham Station. And here at Chatham Station we want to stop at the 4, 6 and 8 car stop sign, around 2/3 of the way along the platform. And so we should now be stopped in just about the right place. As we depart away from Chatham, the speed limit here is 30 mph with just under a mile to go to the next stop, which is Rochester. As we reach 30 mph, I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast. If we lose too much speed, I'll just give us a notch of power to bring us back up to 30 once again. We're shortly coming up on the site of the old Rochester Station, which closed a few years ago and was moved just, a short distance down the line. We're now coming up on Rochester Station, so I'm going to apply the brakes step 1 just as we enter the platform here. Here at Rochester we want to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. We should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing away from Rochester, the speed limit is still 30 miles per hour, with around 22.5 miles to go to the next stop at Bromley South, and this is of course the longest gap between any two stops on this journey. I'm just allowing the train to coast at 30 for now. We're now crossing the River Medway by way of the Rochester Bridge, and then in a moment we're going to be coming up on Rochester Bridge Junction, where the line towards Strood and Dartford diverges away from us, and of course that's the route that the high-speed trains take towards Ebbsfleet and St Pancras International. The grade changes to up 1 in 101 shortly after Rochester Bridge Junction, so I will need to give us a bit of power to ensure that we don't lose too much speed along here. I think we've just started on the upgrade now, so I've given us 1 notch of power, and I'll give us a 2nd notch if we lose too much speed. I think the gradient might have levelled out once again, and then in a moment we're going to be on a downgrade of 1 in 100 just before the upcoming 80 mile per hour speed post. So the speed limit's going to be increasing to 80, and I am going to need to use the brakes to control the speed, just to ensure that we don't break the 30 mile per hour speed limit until the rear of the train has passed the 80 speed post. We're now coming up on that 80 speed post. We can accelerate towards 80 miles per hour at the end of this curve. So now straight up to full power to start accelerating. The gradient's now going to be changing to up 1 in 100, and we're going to be on an up 1 in 100 grade for quite a distance now, and it's going to significantly affect our acceleration. In fact, it's going to affect our acceleration enough that we won't be able to get to 80 miles per hour until we've reached Seoul Street Station, which is the first station out of Rochester, and that's still a few miles away yet. At this point, we're now running pretty much parallel to the Medway Valley line, which is down below us on the left-hand side. about the third of the 3 overbridges we just passed. That was the high-speed 1 route, which is the route down towards Ashford International and the Channel Tunnel. And of course the route between Ebbsfleet and Ashford is going to be coming in the new Train Sim World 3, which I'm actually looking forward to. I do wish that they'd given us a new British route, but it will be nice to finally be able to drive all of the way to Ashford in a Class 395. The gradient did level out there temporarily, but now we're back on the 1 in 100 upgrade once again, so we're going to really struggle to get up to 80 miles per hour on this section. We're now coming up on Seoul Street station with around 16 miles to go. Just after Seoul Street, the gradient's now changing to down 1 in 132, so as we get to 80 miles per hour I'm just going to cut back on the power for a moment. The speed limit should shortly be increasing, well not should, will shortly be increasing to 90 miles per hour. Passing the 90 mile per hour speed post, and we're also passing through, this is a place I forgot to look up the pronunciation for and I struggle with it. Is it Mopham? Mopum? Meopham? Yeah, but we're passing through that station with around 15 miles to go. Gradient's now changed to down 1 in 90 on this curve, so I will cut back on the power as we approach 90 miles per hour and use the brakes to control the speed if necessary. Signal jumped to green just before we passed it, but we did have a double yellow there, so I need to keep an eye out for that. We're now coming up on Longfield Station with around 12.5 miles to go. Due to the fact that this following signal is also showing a double yellow aspect, I've just applied some braking now in step 1 to bring our speed down. So if the next signal after this junction is showing a single yellow aspect, then we've got just over a mile to go to the red signal. On this left-hand curve, the gradient is going to change to down 1 in 100, which will affect our braking. At the overbridge coming up just ahead, we've got around half a mile to go to the upcoming red signal. I see the signal has now jumped up to a single yellow aspect. So from this signal we've got just over 3/4 of a mile to go to the following signal. We're still on a downward grade of around 1 in 100, so at this point I'm just going to allow the train to coast. So we will accelerate a bit, but I don't really want to give it any power in the acceleration. At this long bridge that we're now crossing, we've got around half a mile to go to the upcoming signal. I can now see that the signal is clear. When I say clear, it's showing a yellow aspect, not a green aspect, but we are cleared to pass the signal. We're now coming through, coming up to Farningham Road Station with just under 10 miles to go, and the gradient's going to change to an up 1 in 100 grade just after we've passed through the station. Give us a bit of power here to ensure we don't lose too much speed, but I don't really want to accelerate too much either. I might accelerate up towards 50, but I don't really want to go above 50 for now whilst we're travelling under double yellow signals. Now the signal's clear, I've gone up to full power to start accelerating. The speed limit is still 90 miles per hour along here, and we're heading towards Swanley Station now with an up 1 in 100 grade as we head towards Swanley. So we've just got a warning there for a Morpeth board that doesn't apply to us, so that's for trains diverging to the left, and that's a 30 mile per hour speed limit. In a moment we're going to pass the junction where the line from Sevenoaks joins us, which is the Thameslink route, and of course I drove a Thameslink journey along part of this section in the opposite direction for the first video of this return to YouTube. We're now coming up on Swanley Station with around 6.5 miles to go. Between Swanley and the next station at St Mary Cray there's going to be quite a lot of significant gradient changes, so some quite steep uphill sections, some quite steep downhill sections, which will affect of course our acceleration, so I'm just going to have to keep an eye on that. If we start gaining too much speed I'll have to cut the power back and potentially use some braking, and conversely if we start losing too much speed I'll have to add power. That's once we've reached 90, of course. We're almost at 90 now, but there's quite a steep uphill gradient you can see coming up just ahead. And on the track to the left you can see the train that was slowing us down a moment ago, which was just ahead of us. I put it in as a slightly delayed train from Gillingham to London Victoria. We'll shortly be coming up on St Mary Cray Station with around 4 miles to go, and the gradient changes to up 1 in 100 just before we pass through the platforms. We'll shortly be coming up on a warning for an upcoming 60 mile per hour speed limit. As we reach that warning I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast, so we just reached that warning now. The train will start to lose speed on this quite steep upward gradient. I'm going to apply the brakes at the next overbridge. Speed limit's now dropped to 60 at the very small speed post just to the left of the track there. We are on a slight downward grade though, so I'm just using the brakes here to control the speed. Again, there's a few gradient changes along this section, so you just need to keep a close eye on the speedometer. The gradient levelled out just before the signal that we just passed, so now I've gone up to notch 1 of power to ensure that we don't lose too much speed. We're about to enter another upward grade just before the junction for the line from the Southeastern Main Line for trains coming from Orpington, and we've just reached that junction now, so we're now on an upward grade, and I've given us an extra notch of power to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. And then in a moment the grade's going to be changing to down 1 in 100, and we're going to be on a down 1 in 100 grade pretty much, well, not even pretty much, all the way beyond Bromley South to the next station along. I've now shut off the power to allow the train to coast on this grade here. We'll shortly be coming up on Bickley Station with just over a mile to go. The gradient temporarily shallows as we pass through the platforms here, and then it goes straight back onto a down 1 in 100 grade. I'm going to apply the brakes for Bromley South at the signal just at the end of this right-hand curve, and at Bromley South Station we want to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. Seems like someone forgot to put in the AWS ramp for that signal, as I didn't hear it go off and didn't see the ramp there at all. Bromley South Station is coming up just ahead now. Of course, we are still on the down 1 in 100 grade, so it is affecting our braking here. And we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing away from Bromley South, the speed limit is still 60 miles per hour, and that's now the fastest speed limit all of the way to London Victoria. We're still on a down 1 in 100 grade, and we've got just under 11 miles to go to the next and final stop, which is London Victoria. We're now coming up on Shortland Station, where the gradient's changing to up 1 in 117. I've got the power back to notch 2 for now, just to ensure we don't break the speed limit. We're actually losing a bit of speed now on the upward grade, so I'm just going to increase that power a little bit. The Catford Loop line now diverges to the right, which is where the Thameslink train was travelling on that first video of my return to YouTube. Of course, that was in the opposite direction. The gradient's now about to change to down 1 in 95, so I'm just going to cut off the power now, and I'm going to use the brakes to control the speed on this downgrade. We will shortly be coming up on Junction Station with around 8.5 miles to go. The gradient did level just before Junction Station, so I'm just going to give us a bit of power now, just to ensure that we don't lose too much speed. The overhead wires that you can see on the left, that's part of the Croydon tram link. I would love to have that route in Train Simulator, or maybe even in Tram Sim in the future, and I would definitely make a video on it, as I live in the Croydon area, well, Thornton Heath, which is it's a Croydon postcode, so it's part of the Croydon borough. We're now coming up on Kent House Station with around 7.75 miles to go, and the gradient's now changed to an up 1 in 102 grade for a short distance, so I'm just going to give us a bit of extra power to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. The gradient's now levelling out again, and we're now coming up on Penge East Station with around 7 miles to go. So at this point I'm just going between idle and notch 1 of power, though we're about to approach, well, we're now approaching, should I say, quite a long tunnel, and the gradient changes to quite a steep up 1 in 63 grade as we enter the tunnel. The grade will shallow as we go through the tunnel, and then there's going to be a down 1 in 101 grade at the tunnel exit, so we're then going to have to use the brakes to control the speed. Now the grade's shallowed out a bit, I'm just allowing the train to coast. We are still on an upgrade, as I can see we're losing speed a little bit quicker than I was expecting, but due to that upcoming downgrade, it's not too much of a problem, as we'll soon gain that speed back again. And immediately upon exiting the tunnel, we're going to be passing through Sydenham Hill Station with around 5.75 miles to go, and just over 1.5 miles to go to an upcoming 45 mph speed limit. We're now coming up on West Dulwich Station with around 5 miles to go and just under a mile to go to that upcoming 45 limit. We're still on that downward grade at the minute, so I'm still using the brakes to control the speed. Not sure what's happened to the third rail just here. Oh, it's reloaded again now. Seems it decided not to load for a moment there. So we have a double yellow signal. I've now applied the brakes to start bringing our speed down, as the signals are very close together here. We've also now got a warning for that upcoming 45 limit, which is around 1/4 of a mile from the limit itself. So if we were still doing 60 mph, then I would be braking as soon as we reached that warning. We're now approaching Herne Hill Station, and we're running a little bit early, so the signaller has decided to prioritise the Thameslink train, which is just coming in on the left on the branch from Tulse Hill there. And we're going to be stopped at a red signal here until this Thameslink train has crossed our path and headed towards Loughborough Junction and Blackfriars. Just bring us to a stop now just in front of the signal here, and I'm just going to turn on the driver reminder appliance and wait until the signal's clear, and we're just going to pan to an external shot of the train now so we can watch the Class 700 departing and heading out on its journey. Now the signal's cleared. I'm just going to turn off the driver reminder appliance there and get moving. I put the reversing handle into the neutral position, so I've just put that back into forward now. And so the speed limit here is still 45 miles per hour, though soon going up to 60. Although when it does go up to 60, we've got just over half a mile to go to another 45 limit. And then that second 45 limit, that will be the highest speed limit all of the way into London Victoria. We've just passed the 60 mile per hour speed post there now. I'm going to accelerate up to about 50 and then I'm going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast. Now coming up on a warning for the upcoming 45 speed limit, and the limit comes into force immediately before the platform at Brixton Station, which is coming up just ahead. So I've just made a light brake application now. So we're down to 45 in time. So we're now passing through Brixton Station with around 3¼ miles to go. At this point, I'm just going to allow the train to coast at 45 miles per hour. There's going to be a downgrade coming up soon of around 1 in 96 as we become a 4-track section as we join the line from Denmark Hill. So if we lose a bit of speed along here for now, that's fine, as we're going to be gaining speed again quite quickly. And on this 1 in 96 grade, I will need to use the brakes to control the speed. Unfortunately, the frame rate here has dropped to, well, sort of between 20 and 25. That is to be expected on this route as you get towards London Victoria. So yeah, we're not going to be quite at the fluid 30 frames a second that I target for these videos, but it's smooth enough to drive at least. We're We're now coming up on Clapham High Street Station with around 2 1/3 miles to go, and the gradient levels here just for a short distance. We're now on a downgrade once again, and we're shortly coming up on Wandsworth Road Station with just under 2 miles to go. Now about to enter a 1 in 38 upward gradient, the steepest gradient on the entire route. I am also taking note of the signals that we are running under double yellows, but I have gone up to full power just temporarily on this grade, just because of how steep it is, otherwise we're going to lose too much speed. I'm going to cut the power back now just as the gradient levels out once again. Just to the right there, you just saw Battersea Power Station. And now going to allow the train to coast along here, maybe lose a bit of speed, especially because we are under double yellow signals at present. The speed limit will soon be dropping to 40 miles per hour, just before we cross the bridge going over the River Thames. The speed limit's now dropping to 40 miles per hour with around 1/3 of a mile to go to an upcoming 20 mile per hour speed limit. We're now crossing the River Thames and we're about to enter a downgrade of around 1 in 64 straight after the bridge. And because we've got a single yellow signal there, I'm now going to apply the brakes, especially with this downgrade here. I've now got the warning for the upcoming 20 mile per hour speed limit as well. And we're now passing the 20 mile per hour speed post, and our signal just ahead is currently displaying a red aspect, so I'm just bringing this down. Oh, so should I say just bringing our speed down so that we can stop in front of that signal. Signals now jump to a single yellow with the platform indicator of platform 5, so I'm just going to bring our speed up a bit now, though the speed limit is dropping to 15 miles per hour in a moment as we cross a junction to the left. So I'm not accelerating above 15 at this point. I think the train might still be partly on that downgrade, so I'm just keeping a close eye on the speed to make sure that we don't accelerate too much. Actually, it seems like the gradient might have levelled out now as we're not gaining any speed. The speed limit is now 15 miles per hour. And as we get towards the platform, I'm going to brake to slow down to 10 miles per hour, and then we're just going to crawl up towards the buffer stops at the end of the platform. We need to stop just as the buffer stops disappear at the bottom of the driver's window. But there's a slight bug in that if you stop as close as you think you should, the train will actually suddenly stop and jolt, and actually if you look outside, you'll have stopped mid-air, will have stopped you. There will still be a gap between you and the buffers, so the game will think that you've hit the buffers when actually you haven't, so you do have to be careful of that here at Victoria Station. So personally, I would stop here after the red lights have disappeared as well, but the red lights won't fully disappear before you hit this cushion of thin air and the game thinks that you've hit the buffers. So we should now be stopped in just about the right place, and here we are. Arrival at London Victoria, around 2 hours, and well, it was just under just under 80 miles from Ramsgate. I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. For the latest channel updates, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/ptgrail, and I'll put the link to that in the video description. If you'd like to sponsor this channel or donate to this channel, then please visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/ptgrail. And again, I'll put the link to that in the video description. And finally, as I keep promoting it, if you're interested in my wildlife or travel photography, then please check out PTG Travelling on Instagram. And again, I'll make a mention of that in the video description. Once again, thank you for watching.